Um, thank you, Greenpeace Aotearoa, for your submission. Welcome, James. You have 15 minutes and we do like some time to ask questions, so over to you.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. Amanoa te matari ki tēnā koutou e ngā mema pāremata, e ngā mema kōmiti whiriwhiri take tai ao, ko mahu ki te rangi te waka, ko taurere te maunga, ko tāma ki te awa ko Ngāti Whātua te iwi, ko te uri o hau te hapu, ko hemi ngā tanahira ko te hita a hau. Ko kai hāpai porotehi me huke papamana taku tūranga mahi mō Greenpeace Aotearoa tēnei. I've been with Greenpeace Aotearoa now for 2 years, working on taking the issue of seabed mining and deep sea mining to the world. But as a young person who has grown up in Te Ao Māori, I've been fighting for the rights of my people and therefore the rights of the planet that we are all kaitiaki of since birth. I'm here today to urge you all to listen to the voices of reason, of those calling for protection, and to recognise that the industry is here to profit from the destruction of this precious environment, not to add any value to it. I firstly want to address something concerning that I heard in earlier submissions, that the views of people calling for protection are hysteria, propaganda, and based on ideological views that the ocean doesn't acknowledge or respect. Firstly, to that I say, clearly you haven't looked at the evidence. I'd encourage all members here today to thoroughly read the Kiwis Against Seabed Mining submission, which is rife with data and evidence which we support as Greenpeace wholeheartedly. See for yourselves that the damage will be huge. Secondly, on the implied view that ideological views aren't of any value, I say, how dare you? How dare you question the validity of our perspectives as people of this nation, as people of the ocean, as tangata whenua and as tangata moana? How dare you attempt to dismiss our voices in this place when calling for the protection of a place that you can't even pronounce? Taranaki, te moana nui a Kiwa, the great ocean of Kiwa. It is worth protecting. It is worth speaking up. To the previous speaker, I say tikanga is law. To Stratera, I say the Pacific Islands were never ours, and we are not telling them what to say. I sit here today and demand that you, as the committee, and therefore Te Whare Pāremata, take action. Greenpeace Aotearoa and the tens of thousands of supporters who believe in our mission are here today to call on you to recommend that this Parliament ban the destructive seabed mining industry before it can get a foothold in this beautiful country. I notice that the industry really loves to use these buzzwords, terms such as low impact seabed mining, considering one of the determinations of the Supreme Court in the case against Trans-Tasman Resources was that material harm would be caused by seabed mining. How dare the industry sit there and use a term like low impact? I heard Stratera also before attempt to use a quote by the Right Honourable Helen Clark to push their agenda. I remind the committee of this excerpt from a Stuff article in 2022 on her position. Quote, former Prime Minister Helen Clark has thrown her weight behind calls to ban bottom trawling on seamounts. Clark says oceans are under tremendous pressure from the effects of climate change and threats from deep sea mining and bottom trawling, end quote. Seabed mining is a new frontier of extractivism that we have the ability to stop now, close the door and leave one of the most untouched places in this country alone. Aotearoa has often been on the right side of history, not always, but often. From our nuclear-free stance to stopping new oil and gas permits, women's suffrage, gay marriage. We are now at the crossroads of one of the biggest decisions in the future of humanity and the impact that we have on the natural environment. The people in this room have the power to influence our choice as a nation. We must take the path that leads to the protection of the ocean. There is a growing movement across the world which in some senses ironically includes this country, supporting precaution and calling for a precautionary approach. We must ensure that there is congruence between our international and domestic approaches. So far, however, the government has left civil society and Māori to call for that protection. I've seen the sheer impact that this fight has taken on people and their lives. Yet still they turn up every day, day after day to continue this fight. I ask, please, do the right thing and take this burden off the shoulders of everyday New Zealanders. In Aotearoa, we have a beautiful and unique marine ecosystem. It's incredibly diverse, but is also fragile. I note that in earlier submissions today, we heard that we could see recovery in as little as weeks. I look away from the industry and toward the science, specifically at a 2019 study published in the journal Nature that found that many species had not returned to this particular mined area even 26 years after the disrupted sediment had settled. The authors wrote that the industry's impact could be, quote, greater than expected and could potentially lead to an irreversible loss of some ecosystem functions, end quote. So how are we sitting here discussing the opening of one of the most precious environments in the entire country to a profit-driven destructive industry? It's a slap in the face to the recently agreed Global Oceans Treaty, to the people who have fought so valiantly to protect the ocean with science backing us, to Te Tiriti and the rights of Māori to have access to healthy kaimoana to feed their whānau. Imagine the global headlines, Clean Green New Zealand allows the seabed to be destroyed. But not only does this impact our global image as a nation, it also disrupts fisheries, tourism, and the daily lives of everyday New Zealanders. Imagine this, you're a Maui dolphin, swimming along the coast of Taranaki where a cloud of sediment comes over you, smothering you, stopping you from wayfinding, stopping you from sustaining yourself. This is the future that we're looking at, with seabed mining running rife in the EEZ. It was funny listening to the arguments that there are already a bunch of activities happening in the EEZ. It reminded me of the fishing industry saying, we've destroyed this part of the ocean, so why not let us keep bottom trawling there? Is this the argument that the seabed mining industry brings? Have you heard of cumulative impacts? Just because other destructive activities are happening, that doesn't allow you the right to go in and add additional layers of damage. It just doesn't make sense. The ocean isn't seen in Te Ao Māori or Te Ao Pacifica as something that separates us. We don't see ourselves as small island nations on the bottom side of the world. In fact, we are large blue ocean nations connected by the sea that nourishes us. If we aren't prepared to take protection of Te Taiao, the natural environment, seriously, who will? I want to make one thing very clear. There isn't an environmentally friendly way to mine the seabed. That's absolute and blatant greenwashing. You quite literally bulldoze the seabed to collect the bits of value to these profit-driven companies, whilst discharging the vast majority of it as a polluting sediment plume, which smothers sea life, and in the process kills the majority of any life contained in that layer that's extracted. There's a movement across the world and global businesses where they accept that this system of constantly extracting from the planet doesn't fit within a sustainable business model, from both an environmental and an economic perspective. That's why car manufacturers and infrastructure companies, bear with me, such as BMW Group, Manta Ray EV, Renault Group, Scania, Volkswagen, Volvo Group, Rivian, and Charge Enterprises, plus financial institutions, FAMA, Vavaden, Generation, Globalance, Goodlander, Catapult Ocean, Planet Ocean Fund, Storebrand, and Tridios Bank, plus technology companies, eOceans, Google, Philips, Razer, Samsung, Shift, and the Ocean Opportunity Lab, plus other companies, Breitling, Cars of the Future, FeatureBrank, Futureproof, Ocean Gaming, Patagonia, and Serious Business have all signed an agreement not to use minerals and metals sourced from the seabed in their supply chains. This, alongside a statement of IRMA, the Initiative for Responsible Mining Assurance, of which Tesla is a member, which states that, quote, and the need for ongoing research, the current inability to audit impacts, and a risk that IRMA's standard could be inappropriately applied if used in the deep sea context. IRMA does not allow its system to be used by companies involved in deep sea mining exploration, end quote. So I asked the industry, where is this clean, green electric market you speak of? Because from the perspective of the real world, it just doesn't add up. We're being sold a fever dream by snake oil salesmen, which is designed to allow businesses to destroy for their own profit. Don't get sucked in. In conclusion, I ask for each of you to take a moment to consider the fact that we, along with Kiwis Against Seabed Mining, Oceanic Voices, a collective of young Pacific people in Aotearoa, Legacy and Te Pāti Māori, have amassed over 60,000 signatures from Aotearoa calling for a ban. Additionally, we have a petition under Greenpeace International, only launched a number of months ago, which has over 770,000 signatures calling for a ban on deep sea mining worldwide. A number of states, including Palau, Fiji, the Federated States of Micronesia, Samoa, New Zealand, the French Polynesian Assembly, Switzerland, Canada, Germany, Costa Rica, Chile, Spain, Panama, Ecuador, Vanuatu, Dominican Republic, Sweden, Ireland, and France have all called for at least a precautionary approach, if not a ban. There is quite clearly a risk from this industry, and I say hear our calls and take action. Toi tū te marae a tāne, toi tū te marae a Tangaroa, toi tū te iwi. If the land is well and the sea is well, the people will thrive. Ngā mihi nui ki tō whare parimata ki ngā mema parimata ki ngā mema komiti whiriwhiri take tai au. Haere mai ki ngā pātai.
Tēnā koe, James. Kia ora. You sounded as if you were reading from something which was quite a lot of additional information to the submission. If you could provide that to the Secretariat after the hearing, that would be of assistance. It goes into the record. Are there any questions from members? You're saying in the submission that there's an urgent need to update New Zealand's domestic regulatory settings, yet those settings, the EEZ, others are saying are preventing seabed mining. So is Greenpeace's major concern that the burden of taking the cases is on the civil society and Māori, and so therefore you need to legislate for a ban rather than having a really strong precautionary approach in the EEZ legislation?
Absolutely. What I've seen over the last period is the individuals of movements against seabed mining putting their money forward. You know, we had 13,000 people from Chasm, adding in donations and submitting and doing all of the work that the government should be doing. Greenpeace has put resource up. Hapu and iwi have put resource and energy and time, which they should be dedicating to their people, up to fight seabed mining on behalf of the ocean and the government. We're saying to release that burden from people.
Thank you. I think the submission is very clear, and you presented a lot of additional information in your commentary too, James. So I'm not seeing any further questions. So thank you very much for all of the mahi that's gone into the submission and being with us today. Kia ora.
Tēnā koe, Madam Chair.
Tēnā koe.